Contrary to how many have sought to frame the issue, the repeal of 3778 is not a gay issue. It is not about gay rights. It is not just for gays or friends or relatives of gays. No. It is about fairness, justice, and non-discrimination. It is about tolerance, understanding, and inclusiveness. It is about upholding the fundamental protections afforded by the Constitution, the basic pillars underpinning our country. These are issues for all Singaporeans. The response to the petition bore this out. The signatories were a broad and diverse group, showing that the issues cut across all lines and resonated universally with people. Straight and gay, male and female, young, middle-aged and old, civil servants, professionals and students, religious and non-religious, they all signed the petition. They all understood the guiding light of treating others as you want them to treat you. They were united by the common belief that 3778 is unfair, unjust and wrong, and hence should be repealed. Not proactively enforcing 3778 does not mean that its retention is without cause. The government says that it seeks to reflect the moral values of the majority. But what about the human cost to gay persons and their families? What about the cost to Singapore from those who leave Singapore because of this law? What price this reflection and endorsement of public morality? The majority of Singaporeans seem to speak as if the non-enforcement of 3778 means that everything is fine. But the majority would say that because they are not the subjects of discrimination, because they are not the minority who have to live under the threat of 377A, which is a sword of Damocles that could fall with a change of policy by the government of the day. Some have said that Singapore is not ready, that this is not the right time. I disagree. I say that there is no wrong time to do the right thing. Now is the time not to do the pragmatic or practical thing, but to do the right thing. Now is the time to turn our backs on prejudice, discrimination, intolerance and hatred. Now is the time for this House, which represents all Singaporeans, to lead by example. Now is the time to uphold the noble ideals of our founding fathers, ideals upon which our country was founded and which hold our society together. The ideals of a democratic society based on justice and equality, the ideal of all persons being equal before the law and all persons having the equal protection of the law. Now is the time to do the right thing and repeal 3778.
The real issue is not if, but should we ever repeal 377A. It is not inevitable, it is not desirable to repeal it in any event. Not only is retaining 377A sound public policy, it is legally and constitutionally beyond reproach. Responsible legislators must grapple with the facts, figures and principles involved. They cannot discount the noxious social consequences of repeal. Now, debate must be based on substance and not sound bites. Let me red flag 4 red herrings. First, to say a law is archaic is merely chronological snobbery. Second, you cannot say a law is regressive unless you first identify your ultimate goal. If we seek to ape the sexual libertine ethos of the Wild Wild West, then repealing 377A is progressive. But that is not our final destination. The onus is on those seeking repeal to prove this will not harm society. Third, to say a law which criminalizes homosexual acts because many find it offensive is merely imposing a prejudice or bias, boldly assumes no reasonable contrary view exists. This evades debate. The liberal argument which says sodomy is a personal choice, private matter, and victimless crime merely asserts this. It rests precariously on an idiosyncratic notion of harm. But harm can be both physical and intangible. Victims include both the immediate parties and third parties. What is done in private can have public repercussions. Fourth, legislators are urged to be open-minded and decriminalize sodomy. However, like an open mouth, an open mind must eventually close on something solid. Legislators are urged to be objective and to leave their personal subjective beliefs at home, especially if they hold religious views that homosexuality is aberrant. This demand for objectivity is intellectually disingenuous, as there is no neutral ground, no Switzerland of ambivalence when we consider the moral issues related to 377A, which requires moral judgment of what is right and wrong. Not to take a stand is to take a stand. Human rights are universal, like prohibitions against genocide. Demands for homosexual rights are the political claims of a narrow interest group masquerading as legal entitlements. Homosexual activists often try to infiltrate and hijack human rights initiatives to serve their political agenda, discrediting an otherwise noble cause to protect the weak and poor. You cannot make a human wrong a human right. Sir, public health and safety is a legitimate purpose served by the 377A ban on homosexual anal and oral sex. Both these practices are efficient methods of transmitting sexual disease and AIDS HIV, which are public health problems. These are not victimless crimes, as the whole community has to foot the costs of these diseases. Anal penetrative sex is inherently damaging to the body and a misuse of organs, like shoving a straw up your nose to drink. The anus is designed to expel waste. When something is forcibly inserted into it, the muscles contract and cause tearing. Fecal waste, viruses caused by sperm and blood thus congregate with adverse health implications like gay bowel syndrome, anal cancer. While we cherish racial and religious diversity, sexual diversity is a different kettle of fish. Diversity is not license for perversity. This radical liberal argument from consent is pernicious, a leftist philosophy based on radical individualism and radical egalitarianism. It is unworkable because every viable moral theory has limits to consent. To slouch back to Sodom is to return to the bad old days in ancient Greece or even China, where sex was utterly wild and unrestrained, and homosexuality was considered superior to man-woman relations. Women's groups should note that when homosexuality was celebrated, women were relegated to low social roles. When homosexuality was idolized in Greece, women were objects, not partners who ran homes and bore babies. Back then, whether a man had sex with another man, woman, beast or child was a matter of indifference, like one's eating preferences. The only relevant category was penetrator and penetrated. Sex was not seen as interactive intimacy, but the doing of something to someone. How degrading.